put out into this document, we are matching and meeting every one of those word for word. Second of all on this, a member of our fire department is a consultant to Stanius & Johnson. He works for the State Fire Marshal's office. He is actually over and above most of what Bruce and Warren do through the supervisor position to the State Fire Marshal's office. He is very qualified and very meticulous. We are not wasting anybody's money, and we are doing everything possible to get these grant funds. We know it's competitive, we know it's tight, and we also know we have as good, if not better, chance than most of the departments that are going to be applying.
I would like to speak now. When I had talked to both Warren and Bruce, both of them had informed me that they had never spoke to you, but that they had been in contact with Mr. Bergstrand. They also told me that it wasn't sure either because they still don't have the program guidance document, that it would follow the other one that was just out not too long ago, and that we should be documenting all of the structural damage because they said that the fire departments with the most structural damage would actually be the first ones in line. They also both informed me, plus Peter Makowski from Congressman Overseer's office, that Grand Rapids is trying to do a whole training facility, so they might have first dibs. The Virginia City Fire Hall has a lot of structural damage, and that they do have a fire hall set up where people are already sleeping there. So to me, they were very cautious, and that's why they wrote this. And all I'm trying to do is educate people, because my fear is that if the grant money is not received, and let's say that the township, because before the township can go forward, the town board can go forward with the new fire hall building, we have to have voter approval by law. We have to. It has to be okay with you, and then what the township does is you give us the exact cap of the expenditure that we can actually spend. So I'm just afraid that if we don't get the grant money, the township doesn't approve. Please just let me just talk for one more second. I have one more point. If the township doesn't approve the building, then we would be out the $88,000 because people in the township might not want to build the exact square footage of the building that's there. And maybe I'm wrong, because I'm assuming that the bid that we just spent the $88,000 or $66,000 and $22,000 was for the addition, and then what if the township doesn't agree to spend the money on the fire hall? Well, just in case we don't get the grant money, then are we out that money then?
If the grant money doesn't come in, then it just goes through the voters thing. We're out that money for the engineering.
But
that's all.
The engineering money is kind of put in a bank, and they'll bring it back up.
Project cost.
Yeah, right. So it's not a lost effort here.
So if we do go back, and then let's say that the township doesn't want, if we don't get the grant money, the township doesn't approve the building as big as it is or something or other, the money goes into a bank.
We're putting the cart in front of the horse. The first thing we have to do is get this engineered thing according to the grants plan that they have, what they're having, Mark said.
But the program guidance
No,
document
don't.
is
Hold on.
open. Okay.
No.
We're just going back and
Right.
forth on the same basic thing here. We got some people out here that would like to ask a few questions. There's somebody in the back there that raise their hand. I'll do all I can here.
We've got two separate things here, don't confuse it. Under the one grant, you can fix up your fire hall and make repairs to it. That's separate. That's the $100,000 thing. That's the one Warren was talking about. Number two, the other thing is when you're applying for a grant for a new building, people that are going over your grant don't like it if you're already in process of building it. So if you've already been started, they won't give it to you. But in order to give it to you, you have to have a plan in place. So when Mark is trying to do, what you're trying to do is get a plan in place, so you can say, we would like to build this building, here's what our plan is. We've not built it yet. Okay, those are two separate things. No, if you decide to spend the money for the architect, you do lose the $66,000 if you don't build the building temporarily. If you go back 2 years from now and then build the building, you get that 66 credited, and they have to finish the project for you, unless you build a different kind of building. That's all. It's not any harder than that. Simple. The other thing is the town boards for things that are having to do with safety. Water systems, sewer systems, roads, safety items that keep people alive or dead can be voted on and run and put on levies by the town board. The hell with what the township thinks. Because this is not a town meeting, this is a town board meeting. We get to watch you do the thing, and if we don't like it, we vote you out. That's all. Thanks.
There's a gentleman in the back row there. Do you want to still say something?
Yeah, I got a question. I understand that, we went forward to get bids on this fire hall. But I guess I got questions that, just hearing you just tonight now, we've got sleeping quarters in the fire hall. How many people are we looking at doing something like that for?
That's going to be state law. That's going to be federal law.
That we have to have, it's a facility to do that?
Yes,
The outline for the grant, to be eligible for the grant. you will have to have-
That's less than 2 years away.
Okay, well, I didn't understand
Yeah.
that on a voluntary fire department,
No, it's
having
going
sleeping
to have to
quarters
be
there.
manned 24/7,
So in other words, we'll have a fire chief
right?
and a crew there?
It has to be 24/7 capable.
Well, you're not gonna understand that. I'm just asking that, that's all, to get more information.
Mark, go ahead and explain that out.
I understand that if you have to have that part of it to get the money for the grant, then so be it, but I didn't understand that part from before, that was part of it.
We didn't
until
know
tonight.
that before.
That just-
When at the annual meeting, when we came before the annual meeting, there was no printed documentation as to what this was going to flesh out to be as a grant. Before this hit the national news, I got word of this through people that don't want to be identified. And if I do identify, then my source of information dries up, all right? So I brought it to the board, and actually had plans to bring it to the board. The night before the board meeting, it actually broke on the national news. Again, there was no written documentation. When we moved ahead with this, when the vote went at the annual meeting, there was zero written documentation as to what this grant was going to be. Since that time, and the document I've got is April 24th. That's very fresh, that this was a printed document. This is not a final document.
Right, but the
It's
final
still-
won't be until July or?
No. The last date I heard is mid-May for a final document to come down.
So we really don't know exactly what the specs are yet then?
No.
So
We
we're
have a
blue
very-
skying things right now then?
We've got a very good idea what it's going to be. Understand, when I use Glenn Bergstrand's name on this, he has written, I'm not going to put a number to it, a lot of grants. He has consulted on the construction of at least 18 fire halls as a consultant. He knows the wording, he knows what's coming in. He is in the legislative branch for the state fire marshal's office, following law, following upcoming law, following legislation through the channels. We do have a very good handle on what's coming